Hello there, and welcome to episode 109 of Toward a Better Life.
Dusk is falling round your eyes, heart is beating in your chest. In the north I see you rise, but you run toward the west. How long must I hold the sky before it's time for you to flee? If the hemispheres ever collide, perhaps then you'll be free. Cold star cluster beauties, ice blue jewels in flight, in your celestial realm. Don't let him see your light. He'll steal what you won't give him, then he'll strip your spirit bare. There was chaos in his love, from a line of song so rare. Running in darkness alone, struggling now to forget. Memories into black holes will be thrown. Stardust shelters regret. And to me you will always be lost, heart and spirit both torn. Once my last thought every night, once my first thought every morn. Star cluster beauties, ice blue jewels in flight, in your celestial realm. Don't let him see your light. He'll steal what you won't give him, then he'll strip your spirit bare. There was chaos in his love, from a line of song so rare. I see you, my beautiful sisters, running reckless across the night sky. In the present we're all seeking peace, but fear what the future decides. And when I've been gone 1,000 years, your shining youth wouldn't have died. Still on your dark soul journey, waiting for the hemispheres to collide. Cold star cluster beauties, ice blue jewels in flight, in your celestial realm. Don't let him see your light. He'll steal what you won't give him, then he'll strip your spirit back. There was chaos in his love, from a line of songs so rare.
This is Kevin Pennell, and that was Spiral Dance with Seven Sisters from their newest album, 13 Notes. And you can find Spiral Dance, their music, and everything Spiral Dance at spiraldance.com.au. There's a link in the show notes for you too, by the way, and their music is provided by their permission. Toward a Better Life podcast features like-minded people sharing their stories, ideas, and activities on what we can do to generate a better life individually and collectively. You may share your prose, your music, or poetry, storytelling on the show. Just send them to me, Kevin, at towardabetterlife.com. If it's an audio file, just send them to me as an MP3. By the way, if you'd like to help yourself out a little bit, and if you want to delve into your life a little more and find out about your own path and where you'd like to go, be sure to contact me, Kevin, at towardabetterlife.com for a free discovery phone call. And we can just go over the details with it when you drop me an email. Again, Kevin at towardabetterlife.com. Let's see. Please subscribe to the show, of course, if you haven't done so already, through your favorite podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and keep following for magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. And remember to support the show by leaving your review on Apple Podcasts. Speaking of magical, in this episode, I welcome Jenn Johnson back again as she shares her magical side, as what she likes to call her path as a pagan witchin'. Okay. Speaking of magical, in this episode, I welcome Jenn Johnson back once again as she shares her magical side, as she likes to call herself a pagan kitchen witch. Settle back and enjoy my chat with Jenn. You're gonna love it. And today we're going to welcome back Jenn Johnson from the Great White North. Hi, Jenn. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
Good. On our first meeting, we kind of kept it kind of low key a little bit, talking about some of the stuff that we do on a more personal level. Namely, I'm Druid, and you move toward pagan, and I think the term that you use is Pagan Kitchen Witch, and I think it's awesome. And we should expound on that a little bit. So, and to give everyone a backstory, if you didn't hear the other episode that was on some weeks ago, Jenn is also an ER nurse, and she's been doing this for a number of years, and she works a lot from the standpoint of intuition. And when you work in the healing modalities, whether you're pagan, Wicca, Druid, or what have you, but if we look at it from earth-based spirituality, quote unquote, we totally get it. But if there are people that I'm going to say are outside, air quotes, the circle, they don't get it. So we use terminology and I'm gonna let you say what terminology you use.
Yeah. So talking about intuition when I'm talking about it at work, I'm very aware of A, who I'm talking to, who my audience is, and B, how well do I know them and
Okay,
how
so
well
who is your audience you're talking to?
my
Let's
audience. So
start with
usually docs. Docs and nurses are usually my audience
okay.
when I'm at work and I'm talking about intuition. I've got a patient who isn't doing so well, and I feel like they're not doing so well, but I don't have solid concrete evidence, as in vital signs or lab work or imaging to suggest that they're not doing so well. Then I go and talk to my docs or my coworkers to say like, hey, I something about this picture isn't, I don't like the way this feels. I'm gonna go with my gut here and say that we're missing something. You water it down to the Western viewpoint of things to have it accepted and to have the information heard without people automatically shutting down at a word like intuition, where that's exactly what I'm doing is I'm using my intuition to say that this is what I feel like is going on. But in the Western sense of things, it's, oh, I'm just advocating for my patient. I've just got this sense that I, I'm missing something. And again, in the ER, we have very limited information to start with, which is probably why this is such a great place for intuition to come into play, because you're triaging patients, you're hearing the story, and all of a sudden I'm asking questions about things I don't normally ask about in people with abdominal pain or a cancer history or pain issues. And, questions are coming out of me that I'm only half realizing that I'm asking at the time.
I like
Um,
that.
and
Hmm.
so is it channeling? Maybe. Is it intuition? More than likely. Is it somebody divine kind of guiding me, whether that's my spirit guides or somebody else's spirit kind of coming in to say, like, hey, you need to know about this disease process, or you need to look for these kind of things. And things just kind of pop into my head. And like an idiot, I usually just ask them because I'm so used to, most times if I ask questions, people answer in the ER. So I've got a lot of leeway with what I can ask and what people actually answer. Is it truthful? Could be questionable, but is what it is.
And just for sake of clarifying something, how long have you been a nurse?
16 years in the ER
There you go.
predominantly.
There you go.
So
So
there
anybody
is
that wonders, this we're not talking about a brand new nursing student
no,
who's practicing pagan. This
yes,
is someone who's been around for a while, and you've
yeah,
already given something of a guideline that I appreciate, Jen. That how do we work within our society in such a way that we don't put off people, and
yes,
because we don't want to do that
no,
because there's a lot of poor history out there and a lot
very.
of negative history that's out there. And immediately, if I use the term pagan, if I use the term witch, if I use the term druid, really look a little closer into some of these old ways. I'm going to go back to a point of your intuition. When you're saying that sometimes you don't really know where the information's coming from, I'll just throw it out there. What about the concept of really you're communicating with that higher self of the other person, where it's your higher self communicating with their higher self because
Absolutely.
they both know, you both know what's going on.
Yeah. 100%. Like, so this newer generation, so I'm an elder millennial, it's the Gen Zs, and so we're this weird subsect, but it's the newer generations after me who it's all about the vibe. They're very much coming into spirituality and picking up more on people's intentions and feelings and all this. They're very much open to it, and they think it's just a saying. I think a
Hmm.
lot of them do just think it's just a saying, oh, the vibe's off. And you're like, actually, you're not wrong. Like the vibe is off, but the vibe is actually the patient and their health, and something's going on, and that's what you're feeling. But kudos to actually being able to not just feel it, but like then put a name to it. So it's this new generation who's really taking this idea of intuition and vibe and running with it.
Yeah. So the vibe is a safe word.
Vibe is a very safe word. Vibe is actually super trendy right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. You could use vibe and get away with it instead of
Yes,
intention. Not intention,
100%.
intuition. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 It's the docs are trained and they're told it's you can use spidey sense, and that's an acceptable use of the word as a substitute for intuition. So if a
Okay.
doc's talking to another doc, they say, "Hey, my spidey sense is tingling, something's off. I just don't know. Here you go." And they're handing it off to another physician. And that's completely acceptable. But
Yeah.
again, can't possibly throw in the word intuition.
So you can, I'm going to use the term, you can dance on the web without being caught.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. I want to make that into a t-shirt.
she just showed me a t-shirt, everybody, a couple of minutes ago, and we can just run off with that for a second, but
Absolutely.
and I will. But the thing that I want to look at too is we've kind of started to scratch the surface a little bit about a pagan living and working in the 21st century. What's that like?
Still very closeted, still very um low key, kind of putting things down. Like you're still deluding yourself to fit in. You're still having to watch what you're saying. I was on a I was actually teaching a course on intuition yesterday with the Canadian Nurses Holistic Association. I went through my whole spiel and they're like, "Well, where do you think it's coming from?" And they said, "And you know which group you're in, right? You're in the Holistic Nurses Association." I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay." So I full on went with it's potentially spirit, it's your spirit talking to their spirit. Like I went into that aspect of it because I never get to go into that aspect of it because of the audience. You know, we're talking about people who still think the term witch is a negative.
Hmm.
Like, and it took me years to kind of finally come to terms with not only identifying as a witch, but then saying out loud and to others, I'm a witch. And they all think I'm kidding, which is the best part, because I'm just like, "Hey, I'm a witch." And they're like, "Ha ha ha, ha, so funny." I'm like, "No, like 100%, the witchcraft is very different these days. We're not doing all the things that we used to do. Because again, I'm a solitary practitioner. I'm still learning. And again, life is always getting in the way. So taking care of the kids and running a household and working, it takes precedence. And so I kind of find myself being pulled away from, reading and communicating with others. And it kind of sucks sometimes when you don't know, who is a reliable source of information, where things are coming from. You always have to be on edge about just people's intentions about
Hmm.
why they're doing it and what they're doing it for and how they're using it.
There's
A lot,
there's the those are the keys right there. Why are they doing
100%.
it and what's the purpose?
Yeah.
Because if it's self-centered, it's usually pretty easy to pick up on and you say, nope.
Yeah. That's a hard no. I'm gonna pass.
Well, it's unfortunate, but we're still kind of in kind of feeling around and checking stuff out. There are others that are probably listening that still would probably concur with this same outlook, and that is we kind of feel our way through the conversation, and it goes hand in hand with the idea of actually listening to the person you're talking with first. And just by little terms that are used, you figure out, okay, we're in good territory, so I know how much further I can go. Now, you're with a holistic group, and the holistic group can totally understand the concept of listening to their higher selves, listening to spirit and stuff like that. But I would almost guarantee you that if you use the term pagan or witch in that group, they're going to shut down. There's a good, well, I'd say not
Potentially.
entirely, but
Potentially.
potentially. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And
So you,
so I'm very careful with the terms. At work, people have known me for years, prior to me actually using the term. So they either think it's funny or they think I'm kidding, or they think, "Oh, she's wearing Halloween scrubs. Oh, it's September. Oh, she's just, wearing Halloween scrubs because it's almost October kind of thing. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm like, I've got one set of scrub tops that it's a little cartoon kitten in a witch hat, and she's got crystals, and she's got a little cauldron, and it's just this pattern that goes on and on. And if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't see it, even though it's a pretty decently sized pattern. But we're putting ourselves out there all the time.
Yeah.
I'm wearing moon earrings. I've usually got on a triple moon necklace that on the back of it.
Right.
It's got a pentagram on it. I'm usually carrying around a mug that either is the shape of a cauldron or says something witchy to that effect. My keychain has got a Salem, Massachusetts keychain on it. Like, we're not hiding it. Like, if you really
No.
were to pay attention to people, we're putting it out there.
And at the same token, you're not trying to convert people. That's the other thing that I know some
Yeah.
people are very concerned with is, well, you're trying to convert me. No, I'm not. I'm just
You do you.
I'm very happy with who I am, and this is what I do. This is who I am.
This is
And
me just being comfortable.
I just got a tattoo recently, another one. And
Yes.
in the tattoo, I have the Awen symbol. And if you know what
Nice.
the Awen symbol is, you know it. And if you see it, you say, "Ah, we're in the same camp." I get that
Right?
because it's just, and there's nothing secretive about it. There's nothing woo-woo about it. It's just this is who we are, and it's okay, right?
Yeah.
And it is
100%.
okay.
You
Yeah.
can you can be uncomfortable because guess what? We're uncomfortable with people too.
Yeah. And that kind of peels into the t-shirt. And let's
Yes.
see if
Oh
I
my
let,
gosh.
let, let, let's see if I can get it right. Villanera, is that right?
Entering
Right.
my villain era.
Yeah, so tell us what Villanera is for those of us that don't know.
So entering your villain era is pretty much just a term that a couple of different people have started to use about stopping caring what others think, putting yourself first, caring about what you're doing first before other people. Really, it's this connotation of especially women and caregivers, those in the caring industries. If you put yourself first, oh man, you're selfish. You can't possibly put yourself first. You're expected and almost demanded to put yourself absolutely last because your first and foremost should be the patient, should be those you're caring for. So, are you a nurse or a paramedic or police or fire or a mother kind of thing? It's more often than not, the default parent mode of females where you're kind of the default parent. So to pull yourself out of that mode and expect that your significant other um, be also a 50-50 parent, oh, that's selfish. What do you mean you're putting yourself first? Aren't the kids first? Well, on the airplane, they tell you to put your own oxygen on first before you put it on the kids. Because
Yeah,
if you're comatose, how are you going to help the kids?
yeah. And I
And
love I love that illustration because it speaks it says it all, and it kind of goes back to the stuff too that um I remember even in law enforcement a long time ago, it's the same thing. You just said it. If I'm not at peak performance, if I'm feeling off, I have no business going to the department today to serve others. Because if I'm off, how is that going to affect my performance in helping other people? That's
exactly.
that's the bottom line. And I even would tell people when I'm teaching classes that, part of the thing in somatic psychology, for an example, is that if I am feeling off at any level, it's going to reflect what I do. I don't care what it is. So I need to make certain that I am on point and I'm in good shape. And that's physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Emotionally, I had a rotten day yesterday. Something just isn't right with me today, but doggone it, I still got to go in. And the question is, do you?
Yeah.
Do
Oh,
you
you
still
know,
need to go in? Hmm?
true.
Yeah.
How many times have I been at triage, hacking and coughing myself, and this is, pre-COVID, hacking and coughing and feeling unwell myself, but here I am triaging people who are much more well than I am, at least physically. And they're going, oh, I really need to see a doctor. I'm like, yeah. And I'm dying. And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm at work. Like, and people kind of like look at you and you're like, you know, it's another stereotype, especially of the ER nurse, that we're tough and rugged and have no emotion and we're horrible, we're horribly mean-spirited people and we just trudge through. I used to think that the more kind of haggard I could look, the more people trusted that you were a real ER nurse. You know, you've got the bags under your eyes, your makeup, no, makeup, forget about makeup. Your hair is kind of askew. You look like you just rolled out of bed and you're just like gonna trudge through. And that's, you know, I felt like people expected that those were the people who knew what they were doing because they were exhausted versus, you know, a newer nurse who comes in, they've got the fitted scrubs that are perfectly clean and pressed. They've got their makeup done to the nines, their hair's done. They've got pre-packaged meals that they made, you know, 3 days ago, and they're just skipping into work and they're just so excited. And you're just like, you've got to be kidding me. And I feel bad because like really I really actually wish that I had the time and you know mental fortitude to have you know get up early and do my hair and makeup and take care of myself. That's truly what I'm actually mad about.
Uh-huh. How's it working for you?
It's not. It's really not. I went to the massage therapist for the first time in probably a few months. And we were talking, and again, all I do is spout a lot of self-care most days. And I'm like, oh man, I really need to start practicing what I preach. I'm like, okay,
We're,
this is I need to do this already.
yeah, and it's so true. It's for any of us that are caregivers and working with other people that we often neglect ourselves and we often put others first. Villanera. Mm.
So by me you know, putting myself first. Well, I will get up early. You know, I am sacrificing my own sleep. So then I need to make sure that the kids are in bed earlier so that I can go to bed earlier so that I can wake up earlier.
Hmm.
And then I actually will have, you know, I find that I really like having my coffee in the silence in the black house first thing in the morning. Like that's just my happy place. And, you know, I get ideas. I feel centered. I feel like there's time to kind of actually fully wake up and digest what's about to happen during the day. So that to me is how I'm getting a good start to the day. That's just me. That's my ritual.
Yeah.
And and that's how I figured out, okay, this is really what I need to be doing, and this is my self-care.
So what is a pagan kitchen witch in your definition?
So to me, a pagan kitchen witch is somebody who is very much a earth-based spirituality. You know, you're paying more attention to nature and how it affects you and how you affect it. You're thinking about energy a lot. You know, the energy that I'm putting into cooking, the energy that I'm using to clean the house, and how that actually makes me feel. Well, I feel much better with a clean house. So energetically, that's a good thing for me. You know, it's just something that it feels good when I say it. And so to me, I'm like, okay, you know, it aligns with my beliefs and values, you know, peace, harmony, you know, the life cycle about birth, death, regrowth, you know, all those kind of things. You know, starting to pay attention a lot to the moon, and I did it before without realizing, only because an ER nurse knows exactly when it's going to be a full moon
Hmm.
because people go crazy.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. So, you know, you end up paying attention to those things before you realize how much of an effect it has on everything. And you start to put things together and you go, oh, okay, there's more going on than I realize. And it's coming to that effect of the the one thing that really kind of clued me in to, kind of I was fighting it a bit and I'm going, okay, well, what would be so bad if the world was just a little bit more magical? What would
Hmm.
be well, there'd be no harm. There'd be no harm to anybody else. There'd be no harm to me. You know, maybe I'm just going to believe a little bit in synchronicities and being where I'm supposed to be at the right, right time, right place. and believing things are going to work out for the best. A little bit of manifestation. Apparently, that was the word of the year this year, was
Hmm.
manifestation and or manifest. And so, like, why not? Like, why not give it a try? It hurts nobody. It doesn't hurt me except for my bank account with all my crystals and and fun stuff. My husband's like, "Oh God, another crystal." I'm like, "Yes, another crystal." The kids are into it. It's an interesting little hobby, if nothing else.
You were supposed to keep talking there for a minute while I ran off and
I,
got
I
something
kind
so the people couldn't.
well, I will continue talking.
It's really unfortunate because people can't really see what this is going on. But but yeah, I've got a few crystals laying around. I don't do a lot with them, but there's some things that are very specific that I understand about how some of them can work. There's one over my shoulder over here that's called Angelite, and I remember specifically with she just did the woo look. I had a friend of mine that I knew some years ago that had a jewelry store, and I was in the midst of some stuff, and I just had a lot of things going on, and I went down just to chat with him like I did from time to time, and he could see I was wound up, and he's just saying, if you like crystals, right? I said, well, they're okay. They're not a big deal. They're still not a big deal to me because they're just there, and I just kind of see them, and I worked with them as they call to me, and as I sense that I should be working with them. And he says, just hold on to this for a minute. And we started talking, and before I knew it, everything settled. That high pitched, high anxiety, whatever, it just settled. And before I knew it, I was just really chill. And the guy called my partner, and she was at the store, and he says, I think you really need to come down here to the office. Now you
You need
should
to
say
go
this
pick
is
them
all in the
up.
same building because Kevin is truly stoned. Because what happened with Angelite, if you don't know what Angelite can do, it can really settle things down quite a bit, quite quickly. I mean, this whole thing didn't take an hour. It took like maybe 5 minutes, and before I knew it, everything was settled. And I remember he told her, he says, you might also want to get in some chocolate and some coffee. He says, because he's
You put
pretty
them back
far
up.
gone.
She's like, "What did you give him?" Like,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. Well, she knew. He told her, just, well, he did tell her I was stoned. I really was. I was
There you go.
literally stoned, but not on, anything psychedelic. I was just literally stoned. But we look, and I go back to the thing about the pagan kitchen witch, and it's a practical outlook of life, is the way I see it. That's how I would picture that, and that's maybe how I would define it. Change it if you think it would need to be, but I think it's a case of as a pagan kitchen witch, you're living the life that you desire, and there is no facade. I'm here and I'm here to help people because this is what I love to do. And I consider myself as a healing facilitator, and this is how I do it. And I just see every little piece throughout the day. So it's not I'm gonna be a witch on Imbolc. I'm gonna be a witch on Samhain. I'm gonna be an it. We can do the same thing. We have 8 ritual times a year, and we could celebrate everything around that and be really good. But the rest of the year, we're crap, and that's okay. What? And again, there is no dogma, so you do whatever works for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's realizing when things are happening. It's being more aware of the seasons and their meanings to what's going on and how is that going to affect me. So I'm big with the solstices. That's just something that really calls to me. My birthday is March 22nd, which is the day after the spring solstice. So I just it's one of my favorite times. So I will go outside, I will sit on my front porch and I will sit there.
So you make it a part of your life. That's the point. That's what I'm looking at. And when we talk about the festival times and things like that, they're special because they culminate a lot of things in that given time of year, and we go back to the old ways. And you had mentioned earlier, Jen, about how, we're modern day, and yet at the same token, I look at some of this stuff as we're still gleaning information and gleaning festivals and gleaning rituals from our ancestors, and we're bringing them forward because there is no real written record of a lot of this. So we just
Or
kind of move along with it, and who's to say that what I'm doing right now wasn't done 5,000 years ago? It's just
yeah.
that I'm doing it a little different. So, yeah.
And that's all it is, really. It's just finding your way. And I mean, pagan, I feel like pagan versus Wiccan, it's a little, to me anyways, a little looser, a little bit more flexible. I'm not great with rituals and working with deities. I'm petrified to work with deities only for the simple fact that I don't need to piss anybody off because I'm forgetful and I'm busy and I don't have time to replace the offering every single day.
Hmm.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I definitely wouldn't want to be bringing anybody in if I wasn't really well versed on who they are and what's going on and what they're there for and all this other things, because again, maybe it's the Canadian in me that I'm just pissed to, or I'm afraid to piss anybody off. I'm just very, we're just very neutral over here.
You're very likable.
We try.
So where did your practice of paganism and Wicca come from? How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this. So we I've always been called to it. And every time I think that, oh, it's just the internet is targeting me because it knows what I like and what I buy, whatever. But again, the elder millennial thing, before the internet, I would find the metaphysical shops all the time. They
Okay.
like, no matter what, I would find them, not knowing even what they were. But I feel really good in this shop. It smells very different. It's some very cool things in here. I have no idea what they're for, but like really cool things. And I bought my first tarot deck when I was in grade 9. And that was
Wow.
just was kind of starting up. And so that tarot deck's been with me the whole time, but it's been packed away for years and years and years. And it wasn't until um I think after I'd had the kids and I was working pediatrics, and I started to have dreams when I would nap at work on break. And, these dreams were really vivid and I couldn't explain them. And there was one where I was sleeping in one of the back rooms and I can't remember if I actually physically sat up, thought that somebody was talking and said like, oh, heard people talking about a blood sugar. And I think I sat up and said, oh, that's actually not too bad. And then like went back to sleep. I don't know if I actually sat up or not, or just dreamt it or what, but I could tell you that I heard voices. And it was just at that point where I'm like, oh, this is kind of odd. And the way the unit was shaped, it was pediatric. So we turned down all the lights. And so it was really dark, and it was kind of a triangle shape where you'd have cut throughs. And like it always felt like somebody was behind me, like constant, like just
Hmm.
double checking my shoulder, like what's going on? And it was a brand new hospital, like brand new. And so I'm like, this is kind of odd. And I remember finding a woman who did reflexology. For some reason, searched up reflexology, went to see her, and didn't realize that she was also intuitive. And so she would do the reflexology and mix with some Reiki. And, you felt like you were walking on a cloud after you left there. It was fantastic. But she would start to tell me, she's like, oh, you're an empath. And, I see books around you. And I'm like, oh, books. I've never thought to be a writer. Like, okay, whatever. And she'd start to tell me things, and a lot of patience would kind of come through, and it would be validating messages. I did everything I could, and thank you so much. And all these kind of things. I'm like, this is insane. Like, I didn't tell you I was a nurse, and she's, oh, you've got a white aura. I'm like, what the hell's a white aura? Like, okay. Like, sure, I don't know. But, I would see her at the solstices. And the reason I
Hmm.
did it was so that I could keep track so that I didn't see her more often, because she was a little expensive. So I thought, okay, I'll save it for times when I could keep track. And so my birthday was the 22nd. So I went on the 22nd, which was really close to the spring solstice. So I'm like, okay, the spring equinox rather. And so I'm like, okay. So then I kind of kept track. And then she's like, oh, you're an empath. So went down that path for a bit and started to read about energy and how to block and do all these things. So like the bracelets and all these other things. So it really was just a gateway drug to more spirituality and to finding paganism because it wasn't introduced to me. I just kind of found it because, of course, we all talk about Wicca, but nobody ever talks about pagan.
Hmm.
Um, I'm like, oh, I kind of read about Wicca a little bit. I'm like, okay, like I get it and I understand and I can get the energetics of it. But it just doesn't feel right. And so then a lot of people say like pagan Wiccan or Wiccan witch or whatever. And I'm like, pagan, like what's pagan? And so started going down that path. Have only looked into Druidry just a little bit, but again, it's just if nothing else, it's just a fun journey to go on to say like, okay, does this fit for me or does it not? And I have to kind of just keep playing.
Hmm.
And that's all it is you just play.
And that's it. That's it. You walk along and you find stuff that works and stuff that, oh, that doesn't work. And doesn't mean that
No.
it's wrong. It just doesn't work for Jen.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I think that's the attractive part to me is that there's no dogma.
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't raised like overtly religious, but didn't have great experiences growing up with religion. It was like my first bullying experience was the kids in the after or the during the sessions or during the Sunday services.
Hmm.
Uh, they weren't nice people. I was like, oh, I don't like this, And we went for my dad. And so soon enough, there was three of us who put up a fight every Sunday that we didn't want to go. And so then my mom was like, well, I'll stay home with the kids because mom didn't really want to go either. So dad just ended up at a point just going himself. So I'm
Okay.
like, well,
So
good
what
for
I'm
you
what we're
doing.
hearing then is this kind of started around your adolescence,
Yeah.
maybe
Started a
a
little
little after that, but yeah.
Yeah. Closer, more adulting, like even like nursing, like I never had an intuition. There was only one professor who told me to trust my gut in fourth year, and thank God she did. Or else I probably wouldn't have put much stock into the fact of when that idea kind of came around again. And started leaning into it a bit more. And yeah, it's been what following the thread.
Okay.
So every now and again, you'll get little hits
Hmm.
about the right path. And so why not just follow the thread a little bit? So, all of a sudden you're driving along, you're like, oh, I kind of want to go to the library today. Go to the library. If it just kind of pings you, like if an idea kind of pops into your head and it's not something you'd typically do, why not try? See
Okay.
what's see what's there for
Sorry.
you at the library.
So here's a thought that I
Yeah.
that I mentioned ahead of time before we started recording. And you look at stuff and you see how things the synchronicity and being aware of what's going on around you. And for whatever reason, you say, I wonder what's down that road. I don't know. Take it.
Go
Check
do
it
it.
out. If you have a feeling, do it. And it's okay if you have the time and if you have the wherewithals. If you don't have the time, mark it down someplace so you remember, but really make an effort to say, oh, I'm going to go shopping. Do you really have to go shopping or should you go down this road? And didn't you have an experience like that recently coming back from Salem, Mass?
Yeah. So went to Salem, Mass for the second time. And again, you want to talk about following the thread. Salem was just a thread that out of somewhere. And it was just as I was starting to kind of find myself with the empath stuff and all this, I was like, I feel called to go to Salem. So went to Salem, absolutely loved it. It is very energetically charged, a lot of emotion. I cried my face off a couple of different times just because of the heaviness of it. And this is why I absolutely can't go to Auschwitz. I think I would just be a ball
Hmm.
of with everything that went on. But driving back, the second time that I went, I was like, oh, this time I realized that there was an American Stonehenge in Salem, New Hampshire, which really is only an hour away from Salem, Massachusetts, and was on my way home anyways. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop. And so went to the American Stonehenge, beautiful place, very much wooded area. It's a self-guided tour. You walk up to it. It's been encased in obviously like fence with wire because people are stupid and teens want to do stupid crap on Halloween and stuff. And so, you have to go there and you walk through, and there's actually like a little tunnel area where you walk through, and it's super creepy. So I'm like, okay, I'm done. And afterwards, I sat and nobody else was around. And I just sat and I recorded a good couple of minutes of just the nature sounds of everything. And then there were just a couple of sticks around me. And I thought, oh, it wouldn't it be nice to take these home and make them into wands. I'm like, I don't
Mm.
have a wand yet. So I'm like, oh, and I read that you're supposed to make your wand, all this kind of stuff. And so I took all the sticks back to the visitor center and I said, you know what? I really want to take these with permission. They were already on the ground. I didn't pull them off the trees. Would it be okay if, I gave you some money and there can be an exchange for these and I can take them? If not, that's cool. No worries. I wanted to make sure that I was very respectful again about taking anything. And she said, oh, no, it's not a problem. Her and I had been chit-chatting and we'd been playing with her little daughter, and it was just a really good experience. And so she's like, don't even worry about it. She goes, enjoy and have a good time. So I brought them home with me, and my kids kind of prepped them and started to make wands. And then my darling husband thought he was just cleaning and he threw them out. So I'm like, oh, my heart's broken. I'm like, oh no, like that was a 6-hour drive to go there.
But but the synchronicity of it all is the wonderful opportunity that you took just to
Yeah,
go there and find that space.
yeah,
And
it
you could
was
always go back and find some more ones.
absolutely. I mean, and truly, you can go around your own little forest areas and I don't know if it's a past life thing. I blame it on a past life thing, but I'm petrified of forests.
Hmm.
It's just I don't know if it's again past life issues or what, but so for me to go into that wooded area alone was a really big deal.
Hmm.
And but it was like, okay, I'm gonna try and do some things here, there, and everywhere that scare me. And going into a wooded area during the daytime
Hmm.
seemed to be one of those.
Well, usually what I've done before is I talk about, oh, and we did it in your first program. What does Jen do to create a better life for herself? Kind of do a little twist on that, and say, what thoughts would you give to anyone that is looking at, I'm going to say earth-based spirituality, and they're a
Yeah.
little apprehensive about it? What kind of thoughts would you give that person?
It's okay to be apprehensive. There's so much negative connotation to go along with Wiccan and pagan and witch. It took me so long to get to the point of calling myself a witch proudly and not being scared of that title. But, what would be the harm in thinking that the world's a little bit more magical? If it
Hmm.
doesn't fit, that's okay. It's not for everybody. It's not if it's not fitting, maybe it's not for you, maybe it's just not the time.
Hmm.
Maybe you kind of have to find yourself a little bit more before all this.
Hmm.
Because really there's a lot of inner work that you need to do prior to be able to come to a place where you're comfortable to say, I am a pagan kitchen witch and then say it on podcasts after you've written a book. Don't work as an ER nurse.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it takes time. And if you do have those little so for me a lot of it was starting with the synchronicities, the 222 that has followed me around since the dawn of the internet. My home phone number used to be 2232, and when the internet started and you need to pick a username, I used 222. And it's stuck ever since. And now it's kind of a way for people, if they look at my email address, they can maybe pick up that there's a little bit more to me than just what meets the eye. And look at Google them, what's the spiritual meaning of 222? Well, for me, it's right place, right time.
Okay.
That's just me. The whole 666 BS is just something else. But like look for synchronicities. So, you're having the same the same song keeps coming on, and like not something that's on the radio constantly, but you're listening to an oldies station and all of a sudden it's, the same song comes on a couple of different times and it reminds you of a time that,
Hmm.
you were really into writing and you really liked it. Well, why did I ever give that up? And maybe that's, yourself trying to kind of remind you of who you were, because we all get lost in being an adult and,
Hmm.
life and the fast-pacedness of everything. So why not, listen to some music? For me, it's music is a lot of it, where listening to things that remind me of how I felt when I was 16, 17, 20, 25, and reminding me of how empowered I was at that point. And, you think the world's there, the world's your oyster, you've got all these opportunities, nothing's stopping you, that nobody's holding you back. You think the world owes you something, so you've got this confidence. And so why not listen to those songs again and really pay attention to how you feel and step into that. Try to do things in your daily life that recreates that feeling of power and strength and confidence.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
great.
thanks.
That's exactly it. But the preeminent point is to do some self work. Where does it start? It starts by going within. And I know that in our pathway at OBOD, one of the first things you do as you start out as a bard, part of the bard journey is you look at yourself and you start to examine yourself. And that can be pretty scary for a lot of people. And it can even be a turning point for a lot of people saying, nope, not going to go there, not going to go any further. And that's okay. Don't be forced into anything, but give yourself the opportunity to go that way. I mean, just don't slam the door shut, leave it cracked open a little bit. Because there may be something down the road that oh, okay, well, now I feel
Well,
better. Now
that's
I
yeah. It's usually a very slow process because it
Mhm.
takes a lot of time to wrap your mind around the fact that maybe there's more going on. A lot of people have a belief in God and, God controls all and all this other stuff. So if you can come to that and be comfortable with that, well, what's to say that there aren't many gods or goddesses or, spirit guides, all this kind of stuff. It's just believing in a little bit of magic.
Yeah. And there you said it again, that magic word, magic.
Magic
Believe
with
in
a
a little
K.
bit of magic. Yeah. So, any closing thoughts you have for our folks today in this little time that we've had together? And we're probably going to do it again sometime.
Just be nice to each other. Everybody's going through something that you have no idea what's going on. It's just give people the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, don't be so open that everybody takes advantage of you, but just give each other a little bit of a grace, especially in the coming years for sure.
Okay. And uh, have you got the website yet, or did you get a website? I know you okay. So, tell us about your website. Tell people how to get in touch with you again.
So www.rx for growth, so prescriptionforgrowth.com. TikTok and Instagram is at ernurse.jenn, Jenn. I'm most active on LinkedIn and pretending to be a professional at Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. You'll see me with my funky glasses. Know that I normally look nothing like that photo ever. But that's predominantly it. And then if you go on Amazon and search Jennifer A. Johnson RN, you will find my book on nursing intuition. You'll find some journals. There's stuff for paramedics, nurses, special needs parents, all sorts of stuff. I'm just kind of throwing it all at the wall and see what sticks.
There you go. Okay. Interesting way of putting it, though. See if it sticks. But it says it all, doesn't it? Well, this has been grand as it has been, and I really appreciate you, Jenn. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that do, and just keep on keeping on and keep sharing your lovely pagan kitchen witchery. I think that'd be awesome.
Maybe one day I will actually put it on the LinkedIn. That will be the true test of how comfortable I am to put it on the LinkedIn title. Pagan Kitchen Witch, ER nurse, author, intuitive nurse.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Thanks again, Jenn. See you soon.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Jenn, for sharing a bit of your journey as a Pagan Kitchen Witch. You may connect with Jenn Johnson through her social media and her website, rx4growth.com. And she shares so much more about herself on her website, her work, her workshops, books. There's a link in the show notes for that. If you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, and if you're liking to dive into self-care, self-development, or distant shamanic work, drop me a line at kevin@towardaBetterLife.com for a free discovery call. You can also visit my website, towardaBetterLife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your own spiritual journey, and a few products to assist you on that journey. And by the way, if you check it out now, there's also some information on an upcoming workshop I've got coming up very soon, up in April, as a matter of fact, up in the Northeast in Maine. And you can also buy a book through my website, my personal book, Two Feather Spiritual Seed Planter. Let's see. Well, so I also offer Toward a Better Life virtual and in-person sessions too. Send all your inquiries to me, Kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. Please subscribe and follow to Toward a Better Life for your favorite podcast platform, and please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. This helps to spread the word about the podcast and help to create, well, a better life for everybody. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to share your story, music or prose, and if it's an audio file, just send it to me as an MP3, or if you want to be a guest, please write to me, Kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. That's Kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. Until next week, enjoy your journey toward a better life.